The one, the only, Ben Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Daf It Sotah, Daf Gimel, number 33. Great share for you today, as usual. Someone met me in the coffee room and they said, "So how many people watch your share?" I said, "It differs on every day. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 0. I didn't say that. I said sometimes 1, 2, 5, 10, once in a while. Who watches it? Do Jews watch it or non-Jews watch it?" I said, well, the fact that they watch it, according to my statistics that I'm getting from YouTube, 95% of people watch it for about 10 or less seconds. So I'm assuming it's non-Jews who click on it because they're probably intrigued because it's an attractive thumbnail. And what is this? Some Gemara share or Mishnah share? So they click off. So I imagine that once in a while Jews actually tune into what I'm saying, and then also they must click off also because I'm left in astonishment. This morning I was thinking about when I was in Yeshiva University. I was in I started off basically as a novice in Talmud. I was not in when I was in high school. I was not into learning so much, and when I went to college, usually guys from my background, modern Orthodox background, would go to the gap year program in Israel, a place like OJ Mevaseret Shalavim, and they would start to become more into learning. And then when they came back, they would learn more. But I didn't go to that. I didn't have that luxury. So I actually became more into learning when I was in Yeshiva University, which is counterintuitive to most. But after about a year and a half in in the second highest program, the base medrash program, I eventually went up to the Yeshiva Mazer program, which is the highest level, where you basically learn until 3 o'clock in the afternoon before taking English classes. And I was very successful in that. I was one of the top students in that because I had a strong will. And after I graduated Yeshiva University after 3 years, there was talk. There was heavy talk going around who would be. They gave an award to the excellence in Talmud studies. And there were rumors going around. It was like a contest between me and one other guy. I was like 20, 21 years old at that time, and I was getting into learning, and I thought I was humble. So I believe I davened to God that I shouldn't win the award. The other guy had learned in yeshiva, I think, for 2 years in Israel, and came back, and I think had learned 3 or 4 years in the Yeshiva Mazer program. So he was a lot older than me. He knew a lot more than me, but there was no one who learned as much or as hard as I did. I'm a smart guy to begin with. He eventually won the award. I didn't win the award. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that I davened to God that I shouldn't win the award because I thought it would be. I wanted the humility. I didn't want to get recognition for what I was doing. In retrospect, it probably was the right thing to daven for such a thing. You don't need the honor of learning Torah. But now I want people to tune into what I'm saying. Not that I need the honor, but it's more fun to give shiura when people are listening and writing in comments and actively participating. I hope one day to do this shiurim live where there'll be an actual audience listening in real time. It's more fun for me to do it. I mean, you could say I'm not running after the honor. I mean, the fact that I've been giving shiurim, I give about 6 shiurim on average a day to basically no audience. I've been doing this for at least a year and a half with no audience. Just talking in front of a camera, assuming that some people will watch. I hope that one day part of the reason I do this is because I know there will be a library of many shiurim. I'm not going to give more than one cycle of Daf Yomi or Mishnah Yomi or Shulchan Aruch Yomi or whatever I gave is going to be there in the library on YouTube. People to watch whenever they want. Eventually, my name will get out there, and people will discover the hidden gems that I have in my shiurim. My shiurim are truly the best. People don't realize that because they don't listen. But at one point, I would like, part of these cycles, I would like to have a live audience, or at least people watching this shiurim and commenting on them, and have some give and take between them. Because I say a lot of things that are oftentimes big chidushim, big novel points, and a lot of things which are provocative a little bit to the established understanding of the Talmud, at least Art Scrolls understanding, and most commentaries understanding. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about that, but for some reason people are not tuning in either, because the people that learn Torah shares, they're not on YouTube, not on the internet at all. And the people that do listen to me, it's not exactly the same boringness as Rabbi Eli Stefanski reading from the Art Scroll, chazering over the Art Scroll for 15 hours a day, and telling you verbatim what the Art Scroll says with his fancy charts. All right, let's get into it. Lamed Gimel with Aleph, about 6 lines from the top. Tefillah. We're talking about things which are said in any language. The Mishnah says certain things can be said in any language. Certain things dafka have to be lashon hakodesh. Tefillah. The reason tefillah daven Shemona Esrei can be in any language. Rachamehi. It's basically asking Hashem for mercy. Any way that's comfortable for you should daven, because it's important. It's a private discussion between you and God. You say it in any language. The tefillah b'chol lashon. Is tefillah actually could be said in any language? Amar Rav Yehuda lo'olam al yisha adam sracha b'lashon haramis. Person, the Gemara in Shabbos says, a person shouldn't ask for his needs in the language Aramaic, which is a foreign language. Amar Rav Yochanan kol shol sracha b'lashon harami. Ein malach yesharis nizkaken lo. L'fishay malach yesharis m'dakirim b'lashon harami. The malachim, the angels, the ministering angels, take your tefillos to God. They don't understand lashon haramis. And the Gemara assumes that any other foreign language besides Lashon HaKodesh is not going to understand. They're not going to take it to God. So you can't daven any language. Lo kasha, habi yachid haber tibur. Now I'm going to tell you Art Scroll's explanation and the Rashi's explanation. And I will talk in Iyun Menzion why I disagree with Rashi and the Art Scroll's explanation. According to the Art Scroll, b'yachid b'tzibur means if you're b'yachid, so then you have to daven Lashon HaKodesh. But if you're Nitzibor, right? If you're Nitzibor, then it's a strong tefillah, like the Gemara in Bracha says, "Hein kel kaber lo yimas." If you have 10 people davening, it's a strong tefillah. So therefore, it gets to God anyway. You don't need malach yesharis to bring it. A private tefillah, you need malach yesharis to bring it to God. So they don't understand foreign language. But tefillah b'tzibor, Hashem goes straight to Hashem. So therefore, you can daven in any language. I'll tell you my understanding, which is exactly the opposite of this, and I'll explain why I said that. In Iyun Ben Zion, separate Iyun Shir, I do every day, 6 to 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, doing 6 to 10 minutes every day. A novel chiddush, a novel interpretation I have in that is Gemara. Ve'ein malach yesharis makir melashon Arami. Is it true the malachim don't recognize Arami language? Atanya Yochanan Kohen Gadol Shama Baskol. Yochanan Gadol heard of Baskol. Beis Kodshei HaKodshim. Kodesh HaKadoshim. He was passing like Kodesh HaKadoshim. Sheomer nitzchu talia da'azlu agacha krava la'antuchya. They told him, well, what happened? There was some army that was going to Antioch, which is a city in modern-day Turkey. Apparently it was part of Eretz Yisrael at that time. And they went there and they won. V'shuv ma'aseh, v'shem latzadik, sham baskol, he was Kodesh HaKadoshim. He also heard of baskol coming. Apparently some Greek king or Greek general had sent an army to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, destroy the Heichal, and he was killed. Or he wanted to make them do Avodah Zarah. What does the Art Scroll say over here? Yeah, they wanted to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, I believe, during the second Beis Hamikdash. His decrees were nullified. They wrote down the time that he heard, that both these people heard the Baskal of Kivnu. And it was exactly the time that these events happened. And these Baskals were in Aramaic. Arabi Haya Omer. Baskal was in Aramaic. You guys say must, so now to answer this question. Baskal shiny, the Lishtamuye Avida. There's a difference between Malachim and a Baskal. Baskal is a heavenly voice. A Baskal is something which understands Aramaic and speaks in Aramaic. You guys say Gavriel Haba. It wasn't any Malachish. Malachim don't understand Aramis or a foreign language. Gavriel does. The Amramar, we learned Ba Gavriel Velimdo Shivim Lashon. The Gemara says, where does the Gemara say this? Come on, later on in the Masechta, that Yosef was taught 70 languages, which he was able to prove how successful of a person he was to Paro. Before he got sent to Paro to interpret his dreams, he was taught 70 languages from Gabriel. So Gabriel obviously knew other languages. There goes Hamazon. How do you know Berk's Hamazon? You can mention any language. This is bless your God. It doesn't say anything how you have to bless him. Any way you bless God, people bless people in any language. So therefore, it doesn't have to be specifically in Hebrew. Shvuah Sa'idus. You make someone take a shvuah that they don't know Eidos for you. They'll sieve. A person who sins, he hears the voice of Allah, of swearing. V'shama, hearing, you can hear in any language you understand, you hear in that language. The general of V'shama, here just makes you swear, do you know Eidos for me? So therefore, it implies any language. Someone watches something and he takes a shvuah that he was not negligent with it. How do you know it could be any language? Asya techa mishvuah sa'idas. Gzera shava says techa by shvuah sa'idas. It says techa by shvuah bikadam. Therefore, both can be in any language. The Mishnah continues. The following things are only said in Hebrew. Mikra bikurim michalitza ad mikra bikurim ketzah. The Mishnah says mikra bikurim. How do you know when you bring the bikurim to the Kohen? Say Arami Ovid Avi. In that language, Ketzad. Vanisa Amartel, the Bible says, Vanisa Amartel, Halan Omer, Anu Alavim, Amru, Kol Ish Yisrael. And when it says by Har Grizim and Har Evil, it says the Levim, when they're giving the brachos and the clothes, they say Aniya. Ma Aniya Hamur Lahalam B'Lashon HaKodesh. Just like Har Grizim and Har Evil was specifically in Hebrew, Afkan B'Lashon HaKodesh. Here also Bikurim, it's Dafka in Hebrew. The Levim Gufayu Minol. How do you know the Levim themselves was in Hebrew? Ask it, Kol Moshe. It's like the word kol for Moshe. Ksiv haka kol ram. V'chsiv hasam by the Levium when they were giving the brachos and the kolos, it says kol ram out loud. V'chsiv hasam Moshe yidaber ve'elokim yanenu b'kol. And Moshe spoke privately to Hashem. It says Moshe would speak privately to Hashem. Elokim yanenu b'kol. Hashem would make it out loud. He would raise his voice. He would make it proclamation. Ma'alahala b'lashon hakodesh. Just like over there. Hashem spoke to Moshe in Lashon HaKodesh. Hashem spoke to Moshe, presumably in the way the Torah was written. Afkan Lashon HaKodesh, here also Lashon HaKodesh. Chalitza Keitza. How do you know Chalitza, specifically the psukim that are said during the Chalitza procedure are said in Hebrew? So the Gemara, the Rabbanan learned it out from Gzera Shava, Aniya. And Rabbi Yehuda learns it, the Mishnah says, from the word Kacha. Rabbanan Hai Kacha, my Abdillah. Kacha means the way it is, right? The way it is written in the Torah. What did the Rabbanan do with their kacha? Right? It says kacha has to be like this. There's three things integral to a chalitza. One is the woman removes the shoe from the yavam's foot. She spits on the floor. And also she says some of the psukim. So therefore anything which a maisa, taking the shoe off and spitting, that's ma'akiv. The amira, the psukim, which is just words, that's not ma'akiv. Kacha. I tell you those things are ma'akiv. Rabbi Yehuda, where does he know that from? Miko kacha. I could have just said the word ko. Ko would have been like it is. That it has to be in Hebrew. Kacha to teach both things. Rabbanan ko kacha l'mashmo. They say, no, you can't learn an extra thing from the extra chaf. It's not an extra. It's not something extraneous. That's just the way the Torah talks. Tabulam Megillah Beis. Rabbi Yehuda Hai va'ansa va'amra ma'avidlei. Right. The Rabbanan learned that chalitza is done b'lashon hakodesh because of the gzera shav aniya. From the Levium, from Har Grizim and Har Evil. What do they do with that part? What did the Gzera Shalom Ma'avilu? They use it the other way, right? Once we know that by Chalitza, it has to be on Lashon HaKodesh. It says Kacha. So there, it says Aniya also, when it comes to Chalitza, we use that to say that Levium, by Har Grizim and Har Evil, had to do in Hebrew. To Lashon HaKodesh. Now, so then what about the source we had before, a different Kol? From Moshe, speaking to God, that we learn from there that the Levium spoke in Hebrew. V'leilav kol mi Moshe, aniya gamir, kol lo gamir. They have the Gzera Shav aniya, but the Gzera Shav of kol, he didn't have a tradition to have that. He didn't have that tradition, Rabbi Yehuda. Tanya, nami hake, Rabbi Yehuda omer, kol makom shenemra ko kacha, aniya v'amira, ein al lashon hakodesh. Whenever it says ko or kacha or aniya or amira, it means exclusively Lashon HaKodesh, Ko Tevarchu. we know in the Mishnah it says by duchening the Kohanim and the Berachos Kohanim, it says specifically in Hebrew Kaka the Chalitza, Aniya v'Amira the Leviim. The Leviim has to be specifically in Hebrew. So we learned that from Chalitza. So therefore, any time you say these things, Aniya Amir have to be in Hebrew. I said that Iyun Ben Zion yesterday. This is only according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Rabbanan, the word Aniya specifically means a loud proclamation, which has to be in Hebrew. But Amira, even though it says whenever it says Aniya and Amira, so the main word is the Aniya, it has to be loud. Amira by itself means a personal conversation. A personal conversation with people usually is done in any language that they understand, the language they understand the best. A large proclamation to all of Klal Yisrael is done in an official way, in the holiest tongue, the language of Hebrew. Brachos v'klolos ketzad. So now the Gemara diverges to discuss what the Mishnah talks about. What was the procedure of the brachos and klolos and har grizon har ival? Keiman shavu Yisrael is a yarden. Tanarabana halo hema be'ever a yarden me'ever liyarden ve'elach divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rita says it was actually Har Grizon and Har Ival were far away from the Jordan River. They crossed over the Jordan River and they went a pretty far distance before they got to Har Grizon and Har Ival. Acharei derech Mavo Hashemesh. Pasuk says after, far away from Mavo Hashemesh, Makom Shecham Zorachas, far away from the place where the sun rises. The sun rises in the east, right? They crossed over, right? The Transjordan, the east. The Transjordan, which is right on the West Bank, they call it the West Bank. It's not really the West Bank; it's the West Bank vis-a-vis the Jordan River. In Jordan itself, the country, present-day Jordan, is the eastern part of the Ivra Yarden, and the western part, the West Bank, is really part of the eastern part of Israel, but it's the west of the Jordan. It's called the Transjordan area. So far away, right from the eastern part. The eastern part, which the Yarden, or the eastern part of the Yarden, which is in Jordan, far away from that. Eretz HaKnani Yoshev Arava, in the land of Canaan, which is part of Eretz Yisrael. Yoshev Arava, Elo Har Grizim Har Ival. That's a reference to Har Grizim Har Ival. Shioshem Hem Kusim. Kusim, the uncouth people. They descended from the people of Canaan. That's where they live. Mul ha-Gilgal. The pasuk continues. Mul ha-Gilgal. Opposite Gilgal. Samach ha-Gilgal. Samach to Gilgal. There's a problem with this. Gilgal apparently was close to the Jordan River. So the Mefarshim deal with that. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not an expert in figuring out exactly where landmarks are. Next to Elonei Mare is Shechem. It's a reference to Shechem. It was near Shechem. Avraham ba'aretz on Makom Shechem out Elon Mare. In Parshas Lech Lecha, Avram went to Elon Mare, the plain of Moreh, and it says Shechem next to it. Ma Elon Moreh, Amor leHalan Shechem. It's talking about Avram. Elon Moreh, the plain of Moreh, had contained Shechem, the city of Shechem. Afkan Shechem. Here also, it was basically Shechem. That's where Har Grizim Har Ival was Shechem. Tanya Amor Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yosef. But that word says Yafti Sifrei Kusim. With this, I proclaim the books of the Kusim. They had their own versions here, but they are false. Amartilam Ziyaftem Toraschem. You falsely wrote your Torah. You didn't accomplish anything. You say El Amar is reference to Shechem. We also agree to that. We learned that from Abraham. You don't agree to Gzera Shabbat. So where did you learn it from? Lezer argues in Rabbi Yehuda. He says that Har Grizim and Har Ival were actually very close after they crossed over the Jordan River. If you'll say it's very far from the Jordan, they learn a different shot in Mavo Hashemesh, not where the sun rises, but rather where the sun sets. The sun sets in the west, it doesn't set in the east. So therefore, it's not from the eastern part, right, before you cross over the Jordan, it's the western part, right after you cross over the Jordan. Eretz HaKnani, according to them, according to Elazar, means Eretz Chivi. Hiya Yoshev Arava. It's the land of the Chivi. It's not so far into Eretz Yisrael where it's the land of the Kusim. It's the Eretz Chivi. Chivi is one of the 7 nations of Canaan. Hayoshev Arava. So the pasuk continues that sits in the Arava, which is a valley. So the Gemara asks, "Valo ben Harim Mikvos and Yosha." Isn't it true that Har Grizim and Har Ival are among mountains and hills? Mula Gilgal, Valo Lo Roas Gilgal. apparently, this is the question. The article says is both according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar. Gilgal opposite Gilgal. It wasn't close to Gilgal, like I mentioned before. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Gilgal is actually very close to the Jordan River. Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Lo Ba Kosov. So he answered. Elazar ben Yaakov answers the question. Lo Ba Kosov Ela Haros Lecha Lehen Derech B'Shniak Derech Shehilam Rishona. The purpose of this pasuk is not to tell you the location of Har Gerizim and Har Evel. It's to tell you how to get there. Just like when they left Mitzrayim, they had the Anani Akava, which led them to cross, right, the Yam Suf. Here also, the Torah is instructing them how to get to Har Gerizim and Har Evel. Derech, Baderech Lechu. Derech means not a path, but it means you should go in the path. Go through the path. Go through the where the streets are, right? The path that people trod, that people walk through, and don't go through fields and vineyards. Hayoshev means b'yishuv lechu v'lo b'mbaros. Go among the inhabited land. Don't go a place where there's empty land. Ba'rava lechu v'lo b'harim. Go in the plains and not in the mountains and hills. But when you get to the place, Har Gerizim and Har Evel is among the mountains and hills. Kate said, Avru Yisrael Sayard. How did they practically? What was their formation when they crossed the Jordan River? L'chol yom Aaron Nosea Achar Shnei Degalim. Right, they were split into 4 Degalim, 4 encampments. They had 12 Shvatim, and there were 4 Degalim, 4 encampments, each with 3 Shvatim. So it used to be there were 2 Degalim leading, 2 Degalim in the back, and the Aaron was in the middle. Aaron Nosea Achar Shnei Degalim. Yom Nasa Tchila. When they crossed the Jordan, the Aaron led all 4 Degalim. Shneimar Hine Aaron Abris Adon. The Aron Abris belongs to God. It'll pass in front of you. Every day it used to be Leviim carried the Aron. And this day when they crossed the Jordan, the Kohanim carried it. And Yehoshua, it says, when they were carrying it over, and the feet of the Kohanim rested, they were carrying the Aron Hashem. Tanya Riyosi Omer B'shloshim Makomos Nasa Kohanim as Aron. 3 times the Kohanim actually carried the Aron themselves. Like we said before, when they crossed the Jordan River, when they got into Israel and they captured Yericho, they wanted to encircle the town, the city 7 times, so that the Kohanim were holding the Aron. When they brought the Aron back to the base of Mikdash in the time of Shlomo Melech, also the Kohanim were holding it. That's the conclusion of today's shir. We'll continue with this brisa tomorrow. Stay tuned for Enoch Ben Sion, where I talk about the difference between tefillah. Tefillah could be in any language sometimes, and sometimes it has to be specifically in Hebrew. I'll give my novel explanation. Enoch Ben Sion coming up next.